Chapter 581, Great Beast. Under the pale glow of the moon, Kai's silver armor shone with a keen elegance, its engravings catching the light in an enchanting display. Oppressive and powerful, those two words described the appearance of her battle armor well, so much that its might-colored perception, the entire ocean seemed to sink. Mu Yi's eyes flickered with light as he took in the sight. He sighed. That's a three-word battle armor. A three-word battle armor from Shrek Academy really is different. Tang Wuling stared at Kai, jaw-dropping and unable to tear away his gaze. This was his first time beholding her true might. He had been told she was a powerful elder during the entrance exam, but never could he have imagined such oppressive power. Only those who stood at the peak could suppress the ocean itself. This was the strength of a hyper Douluo equipped with three-word battle armor. In this state, she was only one step short of matching a limit Douluo. To put that into perspective, a seven-ring soul sage equipped with two-word battle armor was nearly on par with the title Douluo, and an eight-ring soul Douluo with three-word battle armor could match a hyper Douluo. However, after becoming a hyper Douluo, the remaining soul power ranks grew exponentially harder to achieve. Even a title Douluo with three-word battle armor could only match a rank 96 hyper Douluo. Since Kai was a hyper Douluo herself, her three-word battle armor boosted her strength to the equivalent of a rank 98 hyper Douluo, a mere step shy from a rank 99 limit Douluo. If she managed to upgrade her armor to the four-word level, she would stand on the peak above all other peaks in terms of strength. As such, Kai had nothing to fear from a couple of 100,000-year soul beasts. Even if their cultivation levels were far higher, she still could put up a good fight. As someone who earned the position of an elder of Shrek Academy, she was naturally a person who gazed down from the summit. I'll give you one more chance, barked Kai. Get out of the way now. Leave her to me, someone said from deep within the ocean. The next instant, a figure burst through the water in the distance. The sky around them trembled, as you're raging through its expanse. The ocean swelled up to swallow the sky. To those on board the two ships, it looked as if the ocean engulfed the entire world. Kai's confident expression faltered for the first time. During dangerous situations, information saved lives. Tang Wuling used his purple demon eyes to see what had broke through the water's surface. To his astonishment, the figure appeared to be a human male. However, that similarity only held true for his upper body. His lower body consisted of 12 kraken-like tentacles. As the tentacled man floated in the sky, he unleashed his mighty aura, pushing back against Kai's own. A great beast. Mu Yi blurted. Great beasts. In other words, soul beasts with a cultivation level over 200,000 years. The continent of Douluo also had several of its own known. They were the 10 great beasts. 10,000 years ago, the 10 great beasts had shocked the world with their strength and fought against the founder of the Spirit Pagoda, the Spirit Ice Douluo. Who are you? He managed to slay a few and drive them away. Ever since then, there had been no sightings of any of the 10 great beasts. Among the 10, the strongest was known as the Beast God, the Golden-Eyed Black Dragon King, and possessed a cultivation level over 800,000 years. The most powerful existence in the mortal realm. Legends had it that before the Spirit Ice Douluo ascended to godhood, he waged war against the Golden-Eyed Black Dragon King, the Tian. In the end, he managed victory and ascended. The Beast God disappeared afterward, his death unconfirmed. The ocean covered far more of the planet than land did, so there were more great beasts lurking within the waters. With the addition of a great beast to the pair of 100,000-year soul beasts, Kai and the ships now faced a true threat. As water dripped from the great beast still suspended in midair, its body enlarged, transforming into a colossal kraken over a kilometer in size. A single strike of its tentacles sent the ocean into a frenzy. Even Kai was overwhelmed by its outburst of strength. The abyssal demon Whale King bellowed, rallying all of the lesser soul beasts to attack the ships. Kai raised her staff to the sky in retaliation. It swallowed the moonlight cast by the silver moon, gathered it, and condensed the moonlight into a long needle. The staff released the needle, shooting it at the giant kraken. The colossal kraken waved its tentacles in front of it. Violet petals of light, layers upon layers of such, loomed. The petals intercepted the needle in a dazzling explosion of lights. As the two powerhouses waged war against each other, the two ships began mounting their offensive as well. With a shuddering boom, the ship's soul cannons unleashed simultaneously upon the swarming beasts. Powered by soul batteries, the soul cannons could continuously recharge by injection of soul power. They possessed immense firepower, the strongest of them even capable of unleashing an attack on par with the title Douluo. In an instant, explosions rose from the water. The corpses of numerous soul beasts floated to the ocean's surface, but they had barely put a dent into the number of beasts, and the beasts continued charging the ships, slamming against the barrier. From the points of impact expanded quivering ripples. Fortunately, the ships were equipped with a powerful soul barrier and soul generators for the sake of protecting the two continents' diplomats. The barriers just managed to hold against the onslaught. In the air, the four three-word battle armor masters split into two groups to obstruct the abyssal demon Whale King and the great white demon Shark King. However, obstruction was their limit. They were at a disadvantage fighting in the open ocean, and this was the domain of their enemies. Utter chaos engulfed them in an instant. Tang Wuling elbowed Mu Yi at his side. Teacher, you. Mu Yi remained silent, watching the ongoing battle outside with an indifferent gaze. Wu Zhangkong narrowed his eyes at Mu Yi, then in a flicker of movement, he tore through the air like a shooting star to join the battle, robes flapping in the wind. He equipped his Sky Ice battle armor and summoned his Skyfrost sword mid-flight. As a seven-ring soul sage and a two-word battle armor master, he could unleash strength nearly at the level of a title Douluo. But more importantly, he was Wu Zhangkong. A great white demon shark sensed Wu Zhangkong flying in the air and turned to him. Its dorsal fin shining as it unleashed a beam of energy his direction. The beam raged forth like a bolt of lightning, closing the distance between them in an instant. But Wu Zhangkong slashed his Skyfrost sword toward the incoming beam, unleashing numerous tiny frost scars that sliced the beam into nothingness. He halted in the air, his battle armor shining bright. A blink, and he dove toward the ocean. As he plummeted, his soul rings revolved around him, the seventh beginning to blossom with radiance. His Skyfrost sword grew to a gigantic size. Wu Zhangkong fused with it, unleashing an overwhelming burst of sword intent. Now over 10 meters in length, the gigantic Skyfrost sword stabbing into the ocean. This was his seventh soul skill, martial soul avatar. However, the gigantic sword didn't target any shark in particular. Instead, it simply pierced straight into the water and disappeared. Huh? What's teacher we doing? Tang Wuling stared, flabbergasted, but his question was answered the next instant. The surface of the ocean began to crystallize with ice. Chilling fog rose from the water. In the blink of an eye, the ice covered an expanse of several hundred meters in diameter, encasing hundreds of soul beasts. Chapter 582, into the fray. Furrowing his brows ever so slightly, Mu Yi observed the ever-expanding sheet of ice upon the ocean. He's using his martial soul avatar to freeze the ocean. He's frozen at least 20 soul beasts at the 10,000-year level, but why doesn't he finish them off? At that moment, a boom. The ship rocked, intense ripples spreading through the soul barrier. Tang Wuling tried to steady himself. There were simply too many soul beasts bombarding the ships. These weren't warships to begin with, but luxury cruisers. After regaining his balance, Tang Wuling looked out to the action once more. He saw mechas taking off from the decks of the ships to join the defensive, but even with their added firepower, the soul beasts barely slowed in their onslaught. Moments later, the barrier shattered and a barrage of attacks landed directly upon the ship's hull. Water surged into every opening. A watery grave seemed more likely than ever. Attention all soul masters. Attention all soul masters. We are currently being attacked by a swarm of marine soul beasts. We request that you help defend the ship and prevent us from sinking. Please immediately engage the soul beasts and stop further attacks on the hull. Tang Wuling glanced at Mu Yi and was met with a faint smile. If you want to go, then go, Mu Yi said. This is a good opportunity for you anyway. Tang Wuling nodded and turned to his companions. Follow me. He immediately broke out into a dash toward the balcony, jumped off the railing, and leapt toward the beasts. As he soared through the air, he shot a strand of blue silver grass to wrap around the balcony's railing, anchoring himself. A second later, he landed on the expanse of ice Wu Zhangkong had created. Yu Yue followed right behind him, lessening the weight of their group with the power of wind as she slid down on Tang Wuling's blue silver grass to the ice. Yi Xinglin, Yuan and Yui, and Shishi arrived next. Only Shu Lizzie stayed back, his complexion pale as he peered out over the balcony. I'm a bit afraid of heights. Mu Yi chuckled. You'll get used to it. Before Shu Lizzie could react, Mu Yi grabbed him by the collar and threw him overboard. Wuling, catch. Mu Yi shouted. The drop from the balcony was about 70 meters. As Shu Lizzie entered free fall, he let out fearful wails. On the ice, Tang Wulin spun around, a net of blue silver grass shooting out to catch Shu Lizzie. His teammate bounced once off the net before landing on his butt. Tang Wulin's blue silver grass wouldn't have been able to withstand such great impact before his second awakening. However, now that it had evolved into the blue silver emperor, it was a seamless extension of his body and he could exert his full strength through the grass. Keep your guard up, everyone. Tang Wulin released strands of grass to wrap around the waists of his teammates, keeping them more or less connected. 6 moved as one, advancing toward the frozen beasts. Gu Yue's eyes twinkled and her elemental staff materialized in her hand. She traced an arc with it in the air, sending a barrage of azure fireballs toward the soul beasts attacking their ship. As each fireball accurately crashed into a target, Tang Wulin stood in awe. He could only imagine the extent of her spiritual power's strength to maintain such accuracy for so many fireballs. Wait for us. Tang Wulin raised his head toward the sky. The moment he did, he caught sight of Yue Hengyu flying through the air, a pair of angelic wings on his back, and Xu Shaoan held tightly by the waist in his arms. Her face was flushed crimson as they descended right in the center of the group. Tang Wulin flashed them a teasing sort of look and smirked, but he quickly replaced it with a serious expression. We don't need to attack the soul beasts directly. All we need to do is intercept their attacks. They've got to be running out of soul power quickly with how many soul skills they're unleashing. We just need to outlast them and prevent any more damage to the ship. Got it. His teammates answered. Although they could display their full strength on the expanse of ice, mere 10,000-year soul beasts hardly a scare for them. Diving into the water to launch an assault was suicide at their current cultivation level. There were at least 110,000-year soul beasts in the vicinity, and though Wu Zhangkong had frozen a decent number of them, many more still lurked in the surrounding waters. Captain, escort me to the water. I have an idea, Xu Shaoan said to Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin's heart thumped hard and he instantly understood what she was planning. But before he could answer, Yue Hengyu said, I'll protect you. His wings flared open and his holy sword manifested in his hand. He dashed toward the edge of the ice, leaving the rest of them still staring. The first to snap out of it was Xu Shaoan. She immediately started running after him. With a wave of his hand, Tang Wulin attached 2 strands of blue silver grass to their waists, ready to pull them back at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, Gu Yue sent countless elemental attacks into the air and Yuan and Yui blasted incoming attacks apart with her air cannon. Yi Xingwen intercepted the closest of the incoming attacks, slashing out with her sword to unleash sword beams. With his lack of range, she could only stand by and guard his companions. In this type of battle, close-range combatants were clearly lacking compared to ranged combatants. Shi sent a helpless look Tang Wulin's way and they shared a moment of mutual understanding. Tang Wulin was weak when it came to ranged combat as well, but Shishi's jaw dropped in the next moment. A black soul ring rose from Tang Wulin's feet. Due to the sudden crisis, no one had noticed that Tang Wulin obtained his 4th soul ring until now. When the black soul ring appeared, a phantom miniature tyrant dragon appeared atop of Tang Wulin's head. Gu Yue nearly did a spit take when she watched it emerge. Then the rest of his friends noticed as well. Blue silver grass swarmed out of Tang Wulin's body in a frenzy. Each and every vine shone with a golden luster and possessed solid thickness and length. Every vine of grass was tens of meters long and easily reached into the sky to smack down the attacks flying toward their ship. He controlled hundreds of vines at once, each vine whipping in the air like a mighty python covered in golden draconic scales. This was the might of the 4th skill of Tang Wulin's blue silver emperor, blue silver overlord transformation. The soul skill provided an all-around boost to the strength of his blue silver emperor and even empowered his other 3 soul skills. Tang Wulin felt as if countless tentacles had sprouted from his body. The blood essence within his raging, surging into these tentacles to empower them. Every time the vines intercepted an attack in midair, they twinkled gold and dissolved some of the attack's strength. Numerous other soul masters also jumped down from the ship, and naturally, students from the Douluo Imperial Soul Master Academy participated in mounting this defensive. Tang Wulin's actions were just too flashy to not notice. When onlookers saw how tyrannical he was, they were dumbstruck. Is he even human? What the hell is his martial soul? How's he able to control so many dark blue pythons? Is his martial soul a multi-headed snake? That's not a beast-type martial soul. I think it's a plant type. But what plant is that? Maybe it's a plant-beast hybrid. Either way, his strength is damn terrifying. You guys saw how easily he pulverized that giant water ball, right? Holy shit. Look at his 4th ring too. It's black. Heavens, how much soul power is he using up to launch those counterattacks though? How's he making that look so easy? In truth, this wasn't easy for Tang Wulin at all. To intercept the incoming barrage of attacks with his vines heavily taxed him. Fortunately, he wasn't only fueling his blue silver emperor with soul power, but blood essence as well. The greatest benefit of his martial soul's second awakening wasn't its effect on his cultivation, but the uniting of his soul power and blood essence. Now, his martial soul could draw from the power of his golden dragon king bloodline, and his bloodline could also draw upon his soul power. The 2 types of energy synergized and fused with each other into one common pool. Thanks to this, Tang Wulin's combat endurance had tremendously increased. Not to mention the fact that Shu Lizzie stood at Tang Wulin's side, continuously stuffing buns into his mouth. Pork bun after pork bun went into Tang Wulin's bottomless stomach, and combined with the nutrient-dense great white demon shark oil he ingested earlier, his blood essence burst with power. He could maintain his frenzied defense for a while longer. Soon, the rest of the soul masters on the ship landed on the expanse of ice. The ice created by Wu Zhangkong truly held strategic significance, providing them all with solid ground to battle. It also held the ship in place and stopped water from leaking into the hull. Chapter 583, New Year's Battle. Everyone on this diplomatic voyage was a renowned expert in their craft. On Douluo, many of those who stood at the peak of their craft were also powerful soul masters. This was thanks to the improvements in their physique and spiritual power. Tang Wulin and his companions took charge of defending a section of the ship. Although they only had 4 soul rings each, they were students from Shrek Academy, every one of them equipped with a couple pieces of battle armor. Captain, when did you get 4 rings? And why is your martial soul is so big now? Shu Lizzie asked as he stuffed buns into Tang Wulin's mouth. The difference between Tang Wulin's present and past blue silver grass was truly night and day. Each strand was now a thick vine thrashing about like a miniature dragon, seemingly with minds of their own. Their range stretched far and wide, each strand whipping about in a frenzy. With his evolved martial soul, he managed to intercept the most attacks out of anyone in his team. Tang Wulin grinned. Of course my martial soul changed with my 4th soul ring. My new soul skill is called blue silver overlord transformation. Isn't it cool? Cool. It's super cool. Shu Lizzie exclaimed, but he was more astonished by the endless pit that was Tang Wulin's stomach. He couldn't help but admire his captain more and more with each bun devoured. Meanwhile, Elder Kai and the great beast from the ocean's depths were locked in a vicious battle. The most fearsome aspect of ocean soul beasts was their ability to manipulate the ocean to their wills. At the 100,000-year level, they could raise tsunamis with a mere tremble. Thus, it was the top priority of Elder Kai and the other tidal Douluos to restrain the 100,000-year soul beasts first. That way, the ships wouldn't capsize in the midst of a turbulent ocean. Fortunately, the members of both delegations were strong. Even the cultured and refined politicians entered their high-grade mechas and joined the fray. Maneuvering to stay near each other, the 2 ships unleashed blast after blast of soul cannon shots at the swarming beasts. Further away, a boom thundered through the sky, a storm of energy raging from the epicenter. The resplendent moon hanging above transformed into a giant blade, severing one of the kraken beast's tentacles and leaving a spatial tear behind. The giant tentacle fell into the sea with a tremendous splash, sending a large rolling wave toward the ships. Elder Kai's figure was enveloped in blinding silver radiance. However, she was in a tough situation, complexion pale and expression grim. She had succeeded in cutting off one of her opponent's tentacles, but much of her energy was exhausted. Although Elder Kai didn't fear great beasts at her cultivation level, it was a different story out in the open ocean. Out in her opponent's home field, countless blue specks emerged from the ocean and rose to the sky, fusing with the great beast's body. Its severed tentacle wiggled a bit before a new one regrew. As slow as its recovery rate was, it was still much faster than Elder Kai's. If it were night and a true full moon gazed down from the sky, the amount of moonlight power Elder Kai could draw would not be limited to this. But it was currently daytime. She had no choice but to directly face the great beast in such a way. Hand over the murderer. the great beast shouted, pausing in its attacks. Although it had the upper hand for now, there was no guarantee it could maintain its advantageous position against an opponent of Eldakai's caliber. Mutual destruction was certain if she suddenly decided to go all out and disregard her own safety. Hand over the murderer and we will let you go. Otherwise, we will slaughter you people indiscriminately. The giant kraken had 8 eyes on its head, and each one shone with a fierce light. Eldakai snorted. You think you can win? With how small the soul beast population is now, you want to reduce that number further. Do you think humanity has no way of conquering the ocean? I don't know who killed your clansmen, but you're not of the same race as me. No matter what, I will protect my own people. You want to slaughter us? Go ahead and try. The murderer is here. What are you going to do now? Said someone. Eldakai raised a brow and her battle armor shone for a moment. To her shock, she couldn't tell where the voice had come from, even if she had been focusing on her battle with the great beast. The fact that the speaker evaded her detection proved her strength. In a flash, another figure appeared beside Eldakai in spotless chef's attire. He looked like no more than an ordinary chef, arms held behind his back. But the dark gold aura bursting from his body betrayed his strength. Soul rings appeared around him one by one, 5 black and 4 red, a total of 9. His aura of might weighed down upon the ocean. Without a doubt, it was Niu Yi who appeared. Eldakai's eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of the newcomer. She didn't recognize him but was certain that he had come from the ship. It's you. The great beast's eyes went wide. A glare quickly replaced the shocked expression, blue beams shooting from all 8 of its eyes. The target, Niu Yi. Niu Yi turned to Eldakai with a faint smile on his face. Leave this to me. He stepped forward in midair to face the 8 incoming beams of blue light. He didn't bother taking any evasive action and simply threw out a punch. Dark gold light enveloped his fist as it struck out to meet the beams. Space warped upon collision. A blink, and the beams vanished. Niu Yi stood there untouched. With a whistle, dark gold battle armor materialized over Niu Yi's entire body. His power soared to another level. Dark gold wings sprouted from his back and a golden ring of light formed, rising parallel to his body. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a colossus hundreds of meters tall. He looked as if he could prop up the heavens and press down the sea with a single hand. Sky shuddered, earth trembled, and space quivered. In his colossal form, Niu Yi unleashed another punch straight at the great beast's chest. He's a 4-word battle armor master. Eldakai exclaimed, then instantly turned tail and retreated to the ship as she withdrew her silver moon. Silver flashed across the tumultuous ocean and the beasts felt their strength suppressed. There was no way Eldakai wouldn't recognize that the unknown man wore 4-word battle armor. Although his soul power was clearly weaker than hers, his strength far eclipsed her own. Even if he were a rank or 2 of soul power weaker than her, she was certain that she would lose against him. And that wasn't even taking into account their different levels of battle armor. She could tell that this chef possessed absolute strength. He surpassed even a hyper Douluo. Eldakai's mind raced for a moment. Once she deduced his identity, shock filled her. As Niu Yi and the great beast continued their fierce battle, thundering booms that seemed as if the end of the world was upon them resounded. However, compared to the battle between the great beast and Eldakai, it fought much more forcefully with Niu Yi. It was a contest of brute force. The ocean didn't hinder Niu Yi's colossal form as he fought. Tentacle after tentacle struck him, but he paid the great beast back with just as many mighty punches. The two seemed to be evenly matched, but it was clear that the great beast's tentacles couldn't deal any lasting damage to Niu Yi, while his punches were leaving dark gold marks all over its body. While the two giants faced off, Eldakai continued to bathe the area in silver moonlight, weakening the swarm of beasts attacking the ships. Chapter 584, Niu Yi's strength. Tang Wuolin stared across the expanse of ice covering the ocean surface, his shining gaze focusing on Niu Yi's magnificent figure. This was his first time beholding Niu Yi's might. Tang Wuolin had originally thought that Niu Yi was no match for Eldakai since he was on hyper Douluo, but that was clearly not the case. Even without his divine grade mecha, his strength was overwhelming. Now equipped with his dark gold battle armor, Niu Yi seemed like a god who had descended from the heavens. Each attack brought heaven and earth into a tremble, pushing back the great beast little by little. I don't need any more soul rings or a soul bone, and you have reached your current level after painstaking efforts. So get out of here. If you want revenge, then come find me when you're stronger. Niu Yi said in disdain. The kraken-like great beast roared. Humans, you really think you can do whatever you please? Infuriated, the giant kraken's tentacles dove into the water, and a torrent of blue energy surged from the depths of the oceans, through the tentacles and into the rest of its body. An olive shimmer covered its body, and its body swelled with even more strength. If you want to die that badly, then I'll gladly lend a hand. You'll serve as a good present for my disciple, Niu Yi said, gaze sharpening as he raised his right hand to the heavens. A red streak tore through the sky, stopping right before Niu Yi. The gazes of countless spectators quivered at the sight, at the newly arrived red mecha that stood 6 meters tall. It immediately transformed into a gigantic blade, red as blood. Niu Yi's towering figure shrank until he was about 10 meters tall. Then he gripped the blade in his right hand, crimson radiance blossoming upon it. It's a divine grade mecha. The onlookers exclaimed. Tang Wuolin hadn't expected Niu Yi to use his mecha as a weapon instead of external armor. The giant kraken snarled as it waved its tentacles, expelling a massive inky fog, concealing its body in the murk. Niu Yi maintained his position in the air and didn't move to chase after the great beast. Meanwhile, the swarming soul beasts dove into the water and retreated in a hurry. Once the inky fog dispersed, there were no beasts in sight. With a flick of his hand, the crimson blade in Niu Yi's hand returned to its mecha form, disappearing into his spatial storage device. Then he shrank back to his normal size, unequipped his battle armor, and was back in his spotless and white chef's outfit. Just when quiet returned to the ocean, the people watching from the two ships erupted into cheers. While everyone stared at Niu Yi in reverence, his form flickered, and he was gone. Tang Wuolin stood dumbstruck upon the ice. He was awed by the scale of battle between these existences who stood at the peak of the world. His awe was shared by his other companions from Shrek Academy as well. Only now did they realize how grand battles at the highest level were, and how much further they had to grow. Furthermore, neither side had even engaged in all-out combat. From beginning to end, both Niu Yi and the great beast had been probing each other. In the end, the soul beasts retreated after determining that there existed an insurmountable gap between them and Niu Yi. He was simply too powerful for them to dare contend with. When will we be that strong? Tang Wuolin's heart yearned for such strength. He had been reluctant to become Niu Yi's disciple originally, but now he understood what sort of strength the body sect possessed. He finally believed Niu Yi's statement that the body sect was age-old rivals with Shrek Academy. Since that was the case, he could only wonder how powerful the experts of Shrek Academy were to dominate the rivalry in the current era. A minute later, Tang Wuolin and his companions recovered from their awe and returned to their ship. They reported for a headcount of passengers and casualties, then left for their cabins. In his cabin, Tang Wuolin leaned against the balcony railing and stared out into the ocean. He had been feeling a bit arrogant after awakening his blue silver brass into the blue silver emperor, but such arrogance was obliterated after witnessing that world-shaking battle. He knew now that he was only at the beginning of his path to the peak, still an ant before those who possessed true power. He could not grow conceited just yet and had to put in double the effort if he wanted to become one of those world-shaking experts. Your martial soul evolved? Gu Yue asked Tang Wuolin. Tang Wuolin snapped out of his dazed thoughts, turned to see Gu Yue at the balcony beside his, and nodded. Gu Yue smiled. Congratulations. I need to put in even more effort now, Tang Wuolin said with a wry smile. Once they're done checking up on everyone, I'm going to go blacksmithing. Now that I've got 4 rings, I can try forging spirit-refined alloys. When we all have our complete battle armor sets, we can immediately start working toward 2-word armor. Gu Yue turned to the ocean and looked out toward the horizon, something seemingly on her mind. On this giant ship, only a few of the crew members suffered minor injuries thanks to the protection of the powerful experts on board. No one had died despite the number of people involved in protecting the ships. In the aftermath, no one could locate the godly chef. Niu Yi had obscured his true features when he intervened in the battle, but his identity had been obvious to Tang Wuolin. It wasn't hard for Kai Yue to discover his identity either. The ship continued its voyage to Douluo. A flash of silver, and Kai Yue appeared within Niu Yi's cabin. She was back to her aged appearance now, lacking any youthful beauty. You're Niu Yi, master of the body sect, right? Kai Yue said, eyes narrowing at him. A faint smile formed on Niu Yi's lips. Correct. At their level, there was no point in hiding such facts. I didn't expect Sect Master Niu Yi to have already reached the 4-word level. Kai Yue explained. You're probably the only 4-word battle armor master and divine grade mecha pilot in the world. Niu Yi chuckled. Would you believe me if I told you I'm not actually a 4-word battle armor master? Kai Yue stared blankly for a few moments, then shook her head. She smiled. I won't pry into your secrets. That's not what I came here for anyway. What I came to ask is why is Sect Master Mu Yi accompanying us on this trip to Douluo? Mu Yi's eyes turned cold. Why do you care? Kai Yu arched a brow in surprise. She hadn't acted discourteously at all, yet his attitude suddenly changed, filling the room with tension. Fine, if that's how you want to be. I won't push you about it. I'll take my leave now. Best of luck, Sect Master Mu Yi, Kai Yu said in an indifferent tone. Another silver flash, and she disappeared without a trace. Mu Yi snorted after she left, but he didn't pay her too much mind. There was no one on this diplomatic voyage from either side powerful enough to pose a threat to him. After returning to her cabin, Kai Yu furrowed her brows in annoyance. If she had faced anyone else, she would have already been on a rampage. That a peak-level expert appeared out of nowhere on this voyage, without her knowing if he were friend or foe, left her anxious. The body sect had not been hostile to Shrek Academy for many years now, but they weren't on friendly terms yet either. Even if the body sect was different from how it had been in the past, it was still the body sect. In the past, the mighty master of the body sect was someone who stood as equals with the master of the sea gods pavilion. No matter the nature of the relationship between the body sect and Shrek Academy, Kai Yu could not touch Mu Yi. She was no match for him in strength. Even in the entire sea gods pavilion, only a few could stand against Mu Yi. I hope he's not an enemy. Kai Yu walked out onto her balcony and waved to the sky, gathering specks of silver light in her right hand to form a glowing sphere. She quickly began drawing an air with the silver light. A strange design soon emblazoned in the sky. Raising her right hand, she pushed silver sphere into the design in the air. The design flashed before disappearing. In a blacksmithing workshop, Tang Wuling finally had the time to examine just how much he had changed. After breaking through to rank 40 and having his martial soul evolve into the blue silver emperor, the reason spirit refining was so difficult was its demand on both skill and soul power. In the past, Tang Wuling had only managed to succeed by supplementing his soul power with his blood essence, but that method was not feasible for spirit refining alloys. However, his cultivation had made a breakthrough and united his soul power and blood essence into one source of energy. Gold blood essence and white soul power fused together. He could use them in whatever ratio he chose or use them separately. When he fused them, his soul power gained a golden hue and was at its most potent. The combination of his pure soul power and powerful blood essence allowed Tang Wuling to forge for longer stretches of time now. He no longer had to stop prematurely due to a lack of soul power. Chapter 585, Second Phase of Training. As Tang Wuling began forging and continued to examine the changes in his body, he discovered something interesting. There were things he could only do when he kept his soul power and blood essence separate. For example, any ability founded upon his Golden Dragon King bloodline could only be fueled by his blood essence. Even as he forged, he focused on the function of his body, for knowing the changes within him was essential. At nightfall, Tang Wuling dragged his exhausted body over to eat dinner, then returned to his cabin. He collapsed onto his bed, sprawled on the mattress, entire body relaxed and comfortable. Tang Wuling had always spared no effort when it came to cultivating and improving himself, ceaselessly pursuing strength to make up for his inadequacy. His eyes were always pointed upward, at those who towered above him, and ahead, at the backs of his companions as he chased after their footsteps. Whenever he finally had a moment to catch his breath and look back, he would discover that his efforts had not been in vain. He had made swift progress since he first became a soul master. Compared to who he had been when his old companions, Jiang Yangxi and Wang Jingxi were still around, he was a completely different person. He only just realized that he was closer than ever in qualifying for Shrek Academies in a court. Not only that, but he was now both an agent of the Tang Sect's battle hall and a disciple of the master of the body sect. Wow. The world is really amazing. Tang Wuling sighed in satisfaction, joy filling his heart. Everyone's happiness was different. Some believed that contentment was happiness. Others believed the answer was peace. As Tang Wuling matured, however, he realized that neither of these two were his brand of happiness. His came from strength, the endless pursuit of strength and continuously reaching new heights. Tang Wuling still remembered what his father told him in his childhood. Contentment could bring someone happiness for their entire life, but that was for a low-caliber person. People needed greed to motivate them, to drive them forward and diligently work toward growth. Success was 99% talent and 1% effort. While talent would bring opportunity, success was impossible without that 1% of effort. The words of his father resonated with him. It was those words that aroused his greed and ambition, his drive to always pursue greater and greater achievements. He was not content with merely Douluo. No. He aimed for the stars. A bang jolted Tang Wuling out of his reverie, and he immediately rolled off his bed and onto his feet. He turned to see the balcony door wide open, Mu Yi casually leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets. Looks like you didn't get complacent. Good. Mu Yi nodded. Tang Wuling stared blankly at Mu Yi, memories of his teacher's grand battle against the great beast still fresh in his mind. He could hardly believe what he had witnessed. That mighty man was his teacher. Teacher, Tang Wuling said, respectfully bowing his head. I like the way you said that. It sounds good. Well, let's get going. Mu Yi beckoned Tang Wuling to follow. Tang Wuling blinked a few times, confusion coloring his face. Where are we going? Huh? Mu Yi looked at Tang Wuling as if that were the most ridiculous question in the world. We're going to do what we do every night. Train. Tang Wuling's jaw dropped. I thought I was done with that. I already got my second awakening. Mu Yi crossed his arms and puffed out his chest. Who said you're done? That was just the first phase of training. How could we stop with something as easy as that? Today, you will start the second phase of training. Or are you telling me you'd rather laze around? Tang Wuling bit his lip. Easy. That was easy. How the hell were those 49 days of torture easy? Teacher, don't you think your precious disciple should probably rest and recover too? A rested mind and body are even better for training, Tang Wuling said earnestly. Enough dilly-dallying. If you don't go through hell, how are you supposed to become great? Let me tell you, if my teacher had been more strict with me when I was young, I might have been able to become a true powerhouse. Tang Wuling was speechless. He knew there was no persuading Mu Yi now. Since his fate was inevitable, he could only do his best now. Besides, he didn't actually want to just laze around anyway. With the matter settled, Mu Yi whisked Tang Wuling away for another clandestine night of training. To Tang Wuling's surprise, they didn't go too far from the ship this time. The 49 days he survived were the first phase of training. The focus of that phase was exerting pressure on your essence in order to drag out your hidden potential. The next phase of training is to adjust your martial soul after its second awakening. We do this by training what is external to you and hammer you into shape step by step. Your body is very tough to begin with and your blood essence is full of vigor, so I spent some time coming up with a suitable regimen. I'm sure you'll be thrilled with it. Tang Wuling shivered at Mu Yi's last words, a new premonition creeping up on him. Thrilled? The hell would I be thrilled by? Soon, they arrived somewhere close to the rear of the ship. Mu Yi sealed Tang Wuling's soul power and blood essence, tied up Tang Wuling's hands with some rope made of unbelievably strong material. Then Mu Yi tethered him to the end of the ship. As the massive ship cut through the water, it dragged him along the surface. Although the ship didn't seem to move fast while on board, the force in which it had dragged him along was tremendous, throwing him about in the water at breakneck speeds. Without his use of his arms to balance himself either, he couldn't steady himself and stand up. He couldn't even curse at Mu Yi as the ship dragged him across the ocean and smashed his face against the waves repeatedly, filling his nostrils and throat with salt water. He had no control at all, flying about as the ship pleased. If anyone were to look at the rear of the ship, rather than Tang Wuling, they would only recognize a black speck flailing in the darkness. The ocean had no rhythm or order to it. Waves crashed into him at speeds which made them resemble solid walls of water. The friction with the water littered his body with scrapes. Since his soul power and blood essence were sealed, Tang Wuling couldn't even strengthen his body with those energies. Mu Yi flew above as he watched Tang Wuling get dragged along like a ragdoll. This is a form of forging as well. We're using the ocean to forge your body. Tang Wuling coughed up a mouthful of water. Share. How long, cough, does the second phase, cough, last? All the way to Douluo. By the time Tang Wuling finished his training for the night and returned to his cabin, his entire body was limp, bruised up, and red all over. He collapsed onto his bed and instantly fell asleep. This training continued night after night. Over time, Mu Yi grew to understand the limits of Tang Wuling's body and always pushed his disciple to the very edge. Time after time, Tang Wuling met Mu Yi's expectations and overcame the challenge. After training, Mu Yi never immediately released the seal on Tang Wuling's soul power and blood essence. Instead, he would smear the body sect's special ointments on Tang Wuling's body first. Then, after he had unsealed Tang Wuling, he would force his student into meditating the rest of the night. Such was Tang Wuling's nightly training. Every night was an abyss of suffering for him to overcome, and the only end in sight was the slowly approaching continent of Douluo. One day, a smear of black became visible on the horizon. Tang Wuling Wulin nearly wept in joy at the sight. The end of his trials was near. Meanwhile, those from Douluo cheered at their homecoming. From Douluo's beaches alone, the continent seemed very similar to Douluo. Even the architecture of the port was very similar. A grand welcome party was held for the return of the Douluo delegation and arrival of the Douluo delegation. To those from Shrek Academy, however, this was simply another party where they went through the motions of formality. This also marked the time for the two delegations to go their separate ways after their long journey. The Douluo delegation was disbanded immediately and the members were let off on vacation. On the other hand, here was the true start of Douluo delegation's diplomatic mission. Chapter 586, Tournament Invitation. Here's our plan for the day, Wu Zhangkong announced to the students standing before him. First we head to the capital of the Douluo Empire, Douluo City, show off in some competitions against students from the Imperial Douluo Academy. Then we'll do some sightseeing. Once we're done, we can go home. Tang Wulin listened eagerly as the plan was explained. The rest of his friends, on the other hand, seemed much calmer. Shu Lizzie nudged Tang Wulin. Captain, why do you look so giddy? Tang Wulin tilted his head, then touched his face to feel the smile still on his lips. Huh? Do I really look like that? Yeah. Shu Lizzie exclaimed with a laugh. You look super excited. Tang Wulin chuckled. He couldn't deny Shu Lizzie's claim. He truly was excited for what was to come. He was finally free from the torturous training he went through during the voyage. Just recalling the pain, itching, and soreness he experienced day after day sent shivers down his spine. He was now free from that hell. However, those 2 months of training weren't all bad. He also gained a lot from that torture. He was completely different from when he first boarded the ship. The Douluo Empire arranged for the Shrek Academy group to spend their first night at the port town. The next morning, they rode a soul train straight for Douluo City. Aboard that soul train, in a private carriage, Sima Langshao sat across from Elder Kai. He bowed slightly to her and said, "Welcome to Douluo, Elder Kai." "Hello," Elder Kai said indifferently. Sima Langshao smiled courteously. "Elder Kai, I just received news that we're currently holding a grand tournament for young soul masters in Douluo City. Coincidentally, your first stop is also Douluo City. The students you've brought are excellent soul masters of the rising generation. Perhaps you would be interested in participating in the tournament. They're a bit younger than their competition, but this is the largest tournament we hold for young soul masters. I'm sure they would perform well if they took part in it. It would be a great learning opportunity for them as well." Elder Kai chuckled. "We're just here for cultural exchange. There's no reason for us to compete." "Elder Kai, you know we don't want to inconvenience you," Sima Langshao said. "If your students want to participate, they won't have to go through the preliminary matches. They can start with the knockout matches right away. The competition won't take long at all, and the safety of your students will be guaranteed." "Of course." Elder Kai rolled her eyes. "I'm not worried about that." This response left Sima Langshao momentarily stunned. The next moment, however, understanding flashed through his eyes. "Sounds like you're quite confident in your students." Elder Kai's lips compressed into a thin smile. "Confidence is founded upon strength. You want us to participate? That wouldn't necessarily be out of the question if the grand prize were a soul bone." Sima Langshao face grew stiff. He knew exactly how significant a soul bone was. Even 20,000 years ago, in the age of cold weapons, soul bones were precious treasures. Now soul bones were more precious than ever. Unlike soul rings, they did not appear every time a soul beast was killed. In fact, the odds of one appearing were 1 in 10,000. Only 100,000-year soul beasts were guaranteed to leave a soul bone upon death. Since soul beasts were now practically extinct on Douluo, it was now impossible to obtain a soul bone. Only the great clans possessed soul bones, and they guarded them as secret clan treasures. The situation on Douluo was different, but soul bones were still extremely valuable here. "Elder Kai," Sima Langshao said as he began to explain, "the tournament is actually called the Continental Young Elites Tournament, and it's divided into many different competitions. There is an individual competition, team competitions, and even a mecha competition. The winners of the 7-man team competition each get a piece of soul refined metal for each team member. The winners of the 2-man competition both get a 10,000-year spirit treasure. The champion of the mecha competition gets a black grade mecha, whereas second and third place each get a purple grade mecha. One of the prizes is indeed a soul bone, but that particular prize is reserved for the champion of the individual competition. That being said, only one is being offered." Elder Kai's eyebrows flew up in surprise. Her little stipulation had been nothing more than a joke. She never expected the Douluo Empire to actually offer such a precious prize in this tournament. The other prizes were extremely valuable as well. "Not bad," Elder Kai said, "but the value of the prizes differs a bit too much between competitions. Soul refined metals, mechas, and spirit treasures were valuable, but they were nothing when compared to a soul bone. That's because the matches of the individual competition will have no limitations." Sima Langshao continued. "In other words, competitors will be allowed to use whatever they want for the sake of victory, be it mechas, battle armor, martial soul, or even soul devices. Anything goes. As such, all competitors will be required to sign a waiver acknowledging the possibility of dying and stating that, in the event that their death does occur, we will not be responsible. This is our most popular competition, Elder Kai. Only something as valuable as a soul bone would be a worthy prize, one attractive enough to those seeking to participate. While the people of Douluo were mainly eager to watch the 7-man team battles, those of Douluo were more invested in the idea of lone heroes. "What are the requirements of the tournament?" Elder Kai asked. Sima Langshao smiled at her show of interest. "Participants have to be 20 years old or younger. That's it. It should be fine for all of your students." "Good," Elder Kai replied. Unknown to Tang Wulin and his friends, as soon as they stepped foot onto Douluo, they were already set to enter a grand tournament. At that moment, they were sitting in a luxurious soul train prepared specially for the Douluo delegation. Tang Wulin watched the scenery outside his window flit by. He was astonished by how different this place was. While Douluo was a raucous mix of flourishing nature and modern technology, Douluo's antiquated architecture harmoniously coexisted with its landscape. Clear lakes and vibrant forests passed by one after the other, the clear air allowing him to see far off into the distance. Towns appeared every so often as well, clearly less modern than those of Douluo. Even the train was slower what Tang Wulin was used to. It was as if he had traveled into the past. The food the train staff served was similar to cuisine that could be found on Douluo. In fact, since it was food for the Douluo delegation, many luxurious delicacies were offered. Tang Wulin and his friends were thoroughly enjoying this trip, taking in the beautiful scenery and savoring the delicious food. It was their first time being so at ease since entering Shrek Academy. The members of the Imperial Douluo Academy who had visited Douluo were also in the same carriage as those from Shrek Academy. There had been some friction between the two groups from when they originally boarded the ship, but now they had an amicable relationship. They were careful to not cause issues with each other. The carriage was arranged such that there were 2 seats on either side of a table facing each other. Tang Wulin sat beside Yue and across from them was Shu Lizzie and Yu Xinglin. Shishi, Shu Shaoan, Yue Tengyu, and Yuan and Yui sat at another table. From the very moment they boarded the train, Tang Wulin and Shu Lizzie were constantly gorging themselves on food, ordering round after round. Nothing more important to them than their gluttony. On the other side of the train, the students of the Imperial Douluo Academy were seated in 4s as well. They couldn't help but gape at Tang Wulin and Shu Lizzie. "Those guys really know how to eat," said one of the girls. "That boy's pretty cute though." The girl seated across from her giggled. "He's like 4 or 5 years younger than us." "Zen Zen, are you preying on kids now? And you know he's the captain of the team from Shrek, right? He's so young yet he already has 4 rings. Didn't you see all those dragon-like things he unleashed when ocean soul beasts had us besieged on all sides? His martial soul is a real mystery, but it's definitely strong. Don't think too much of him." Another Douluo student chimed in. "Our captain is already rank 45. I'm sure he's just as strong as that kid. He's also a one-word battle armor master with a full set of armor, while the kid's armor set is still incomplete." Chapter 587, Jinx. The students of the Imperial Douluo Academy whispered amongst themselves, stealing glances at Tang Wulin and Shu Lizzie while they wolfed down more and more food. "I heard the Empire invited them to compete in the Continental Young Elites Tournament. We'll see just how strong they really are soon enough. You think we'll even get a chance to fight them? I know they're from Shrek Academy, but they're way younger than us. Don't you think they might compete in the Junior League? They'll have a shot at the championship if they do that." "No way. They're definitely in the Youth League. The Empire wouldn't show them such kindness." "Yeah. This is our home turf. Anyway, we'll show them how great we are." "Oh, I heard Monster Academy is participating this time too. Is it going to be a battle between those posers and the real thing?" A few students sniggered. "Shh, you can't say that." Another whispered, "You know how much the Empire values Monster Academy." Tang Wulin threw a pastry into his mouth as he listened in on the conversation. After experiencing his second awakening, his Golden Dragon King bloodline and Blue Silver Emperor martial soul boosted every aspect of his physical capabilities, including his hearing. He furrowed his brow thoughtfully. "Monster Academy. What the hell is that? Beside him, Shishi smirked. Captain, how do you feel about riding a train? Tang Wuling glared at him. This isn't the Federation. The chances of running into an evil soul master are way lower here. Tang Wuling had quite a few unpleasant memories associated with trains now. There was always some incident whenever he rode one. He even faced death a few times. In fact, he had been sent on this exchange trip precisely to put him out of the evil soul master's sights. Despite his previous crises on trains, Tang Wuling was optimistic this time. In the 2 months he spent on the ship, he broke through to rank 40, gained a 10,000-year soul ring, and evolved his martial soul. He was a completely different from the person he had been before this trip. He was finally gaining on the heels of his friends both in cultivation level and martial soul strength. His body was now ready to break the 5th seal of the Golden Dragon King with a large margin of safety. Tang Wuling had also become a true 6th rank blacksmith, and thanks to his solid foundation, he had already succeeded at spirit refining a 3-metal alloy. Although he just reached the 6th rank, he already stood at its peak. Now he only had to prepare for the long road to becoming a saint blacksmith. To do that, he needed to grow his soul power, and forge and spirit refine many more alloys. Above all, Tang Wuling was most satisfied by the increased cultivation speed that his martial soul's second awakening gave him. Practicing the mysterious heaven method came to him far more easily than before. A day of cultivation was equivalent to 3 days when his martial soul had yet to reawaken. The cultivation speed of ordinary soul master usually slowed down once they reached rank 40. He, on the other hand, found that his had only grown faster. At this pace, he was confident he would reach rank 60 by the time he turned 20. Should he accomplish this, he would reach rank 60 over 5 years earlier than Wu Zhangkong did. If he also managed to complete his 2-word battle armor by then, he would be able to call himself a true expert. In light of all his progress, Tang Wuling couldn't afford to waste such a rare moment of reprieve. He clasped his hands behind his head, relaxed into his seat, and smiled as he looked out the window. Huh? What's that? Tang Wuling muttered. He could see tiny dots flying through the sky. Are those mechas? He focused his mind and used his purple demon eyes to peer into the distance. Just as he thought, they were mechas. They looked different from those of Douluo. While Douluo mechas were usually humanoid in appearance, the ones in the sky seemed to be bestial in design. This was the difference in design philosophies between the two continents. It was then that Tang Wuling noticed numerous lights burst from one of the mecha's bodies. Huh? What are those lights? Elder Kai, who had been resting in her private carriage up to that moment, suddenly opened her eyes. She immediately turned to stare out the window at the approaching mecha. Tang Wuling was seeing the same thing she was, and the realization dawned on him as he leapt to his feet and shouted, "Enemy attack!" Nearby, Wu Zhangkong was already moving. He unleashed a chilling aura that tore open the roof of the carriage. In a blur of movement, he grabbed Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling responded immediately, as if this were practiced. He summoned 4 lines of blue silver brass that shot outward and wrapped around the waists of his companions. The other students of Shrek Academy also kept calm in the face of this attack. Douluo summoned a ring of green light that enveloped the carriage, boosting the agility of everyone in its radius. Tang Wuling sent more vines out to wrap around the waists of the Douluo students. Seeing that the preparations were complete, Wu Zhangkong leapt through the roof of the carriage in a streak of frosty blue, pulling Tang Wuling and all of the other students connected to him. Without his martial soul second awakening, Tang Wuling's blue silver brass wouldn't have been tough enough to endure the burden of such sudden force and the weight of so many people. He also wouldn't have been able to carry such a load. Now, however, he pulled off the feat with astonishing strength. Wu Zhangkong burst from the carriage with all the students in tow. Just as they cleared it, a soul cannon shell smashed into the carriage in a terrifying, booming explosion that reduced it to smithereens. The force of the explosion threw the train off its tracks, sending it hurtling to the side. A chain of explosions and flames then erupted along the train, filling the air with scattering debris. As quickly as the destruction occurred, waves of light spread from the center of the train, extinguishing the flames. The light traveled the length of the train, cushioned its impact. Over half the delegation from Douluo had boarded this train after arriving on Douluo. That very same train had just been attacked. Fortunately, the train was well armored and the core structure was still intact. Tang Wuling ignored the spectacle below and instead looked skyward at the incoming mechas. He soon realized that there weren't just a few. There were over 100 of them, and painted on the stomach of every single one was a human skull, the sockets of which blazed with green flames. The mecha at the fore of them all, clearly the leader, was a striking red mecha. Unlike Mu Yi's red grade mecha, this one was modeled after a hawk, with a pair of gigantic wings. It had been flying toward them at lightning speed. In the second that it took for the train to be blown aside, the red mecha was already nearly upon them. A barrage of silver beams suddenly shot upward to meet the red mecha. The mecha reacted with impossible speed, flickering across the sky hundreds of meters at a time and evading every single beam. Elder Kai emerged from the wreckage, flying up into the air and summoning her silver moon. Its light shone upon the enemy mechas and restrained their divine grade mecha. She was also responsible for the light protecting what remained of the train. Thanks to that timely intervention, it had avoided catastrophe, but many people had been harmed in the attack and the crisis was not yet over. Elder Kai was almost like a herald as the roof of every intact carriage split open one after the other. Passengers rushed out into the air, and in an instantaneous flash of a myriad of colorful lights, numerous mechas of every grade appeared. Most were at least purple grade and 4 were even black grade. Their pilots promptly hopped in and took off to intercept the attackers. Rushing ahead of the sudden counterattack was the mecha squad responsible for guiding the diplomatic delegation. A total of 30 mechas soared into the air, all bringing to bear their heavy soul cannons to return fire. Tang Wuling gnashed his teeth and glared at Shishi. "You jinxed it." "Boss, I didn't jinx it." Shishi protested. "You're just unlucky." Wu Zhangkong shot the two of them a cold look. "Enough quibbling. Focus on your own safety, then see if there are any civilians in the train that needs help still." There was no way this train only had soul masters aboard. Many of the staff members and other passengers were merely ordinary people. They were sure to have sustained serious injuries due to the train being hurled from the tracks. Chapter 588, Rescue. The moment their feet touched the ground, Tang Wuling and his companions arranged themselves in their usual team formation. Tang Wuling stood at the front along with Yuan and Yui and Yingling. Yue Sang Yu and Shishi guarded the sides. Behind Tang Wuling was Du Yue, and Xu Xiaoan and Xu Lizzy stood at the very rear. "Let's go. We're rescuing the civilians," Tang Wuling said, then led the march toward the train wreckage. Meanwhile, some of the students from the Imperial Douluo Academy still hung around in a daze after the vines of brass had dropped them, unable to make sense of the situation. Others trembled in fear. It was clear that this was their first time facing such a crisis. Among the students present, Tang Wuling was undoubtedly the calmest. He knew that despite the surrounding destruction and debris, Elder Kai, a hyper Douluo, was still watching over them. As long as she was present, the enemy's red grade mecha wouldn't bother with small fries like them. Furthermore, the enemy's numbers didn't scare him one bit. His side also had numerous soul masters and included the mecha squadron sent by the Douluo Empire. It would be tough, but they would survive this. The only thing that caused Tang Wuling concern was Mu Yi's absence. The moment they had reached Douluo, Mu Yi left, saying he had some matters to take care of and they would meet at Douluo City. If only Mu Yi were present, then these enemies would be nothing to fear. After witnessing Mu Yi's battle, Tang Wuling was certain that equipped with the special skills of the body sect, Mu Yi outclassed Elder Kai. In Tang Wuling's opinion, he was one of the strongest people on the continent of Douluo. Damn it. Tang Wuling cursed his luck. Why the hell did I have to go and ride a train? This always happens. It took no time for Tang Wuling and his companions to reach the front of the train. With a burst of golden radiance, golden scales covered his right arm and the right side of his torso. His blood essence roared as he thrust his claw into the wall of the train carriage, then ripped it open. "There are windows, you know." Yuan and Yui shouted, smashing open a nearby window and entering from there instead. "Zinglin, Sengyu, and Du Yue, you three stay outside and guard against any stray attacks. Lizzie and Xiaowan, you two work together," said Tang Lin. "Shishi, you're going in with me and Yuan to save people." Upon entering the train, the trio was greeted with a carriage in absolute disarray, one that had flipped over multiple times. Cups and plates lay shattered on the ground. There were broken windows and even the occasional bloodstain. Tang Wuling quickly located a pair of wounded people by the cry of their voices. He carried them out swiftly but gently. Then his companions standing outside the carriage received the wounded, rushing them away from the wreckage. By then, the students of the Imperial Soulmaster Academy had snapped back to their senses and hurried over to lend a hand. Before they reached Tang Wuling's group, however, numerous soul cannon shells penetrated their defensive line, flying toward their location. "Incoming cannon shells," shouted one of the girls from the Imperial Imperial Star Dou Academy. A flash of silver, and Douluo teleported from the ground to the roof of the train carriage. Her 4 soul rings sped around her in circles as she lifted her elemental staff into the air. She let out a burst of resplendent light. Dozens of blazing blue fireballs formed, floating about before shooting out to intercept the cannon shells. Yizenglin also leapt onto the roof of the carriage, standing guard for Douluo. Her knuckles glowed white as she gripped her starguard sword. The cannon shells exploded above ground. The resulting boom resounded through the air, accompanied by powerful shockwaves. Specks of starlight came together to weave a giant net in front of Douluo and Yizenglin, protecting them from the blast. A moment later, Yue's Hangyu also climbed up to the carriage roof, a tad late to the party. Together, the 3 of them stood shoulder to shoulder and prepared to intercept any more stray shells. Douluo waved her elemental staff like it was a soul cannon, unleashing wave after wave of powerful elemental attacks. The mightiest were her azure fireballs. On the other hand, her wind blades reached the furthest of her attacks, and her icicles possessed the most penetrating power. While her elemental attacks were a perfect defense against the cannon shells, some soul beams slipped through occasionally. When that happened, Yizenglin and Yue's Hangyu were ready to intercept. On to the left. Tang Wuling shouted. The 3 on the top instantly turned to the left, signaling to the others that this carriage was cleared. Let's help them rescue civilians, said the captain of the Imperial Star Dou Academy team. They quickly added their manpower to Tang Wuling's team and transported wounded people to a safer location. Meanwhile, the battle in the air grew more and more intense. Red and white streaks collided repeatedly high in the sky. A myriad of colors bloomed each time these 2 peak-level experts clashed. As for the rest of the battlefield, the situation was quite dire. It was clear that the enemies were highly prepared. They possessed great firepower and powerful mechas. Not only was there a red grade mecha, but there were also 8 black grade mechas, over 30 purple grade mechas, and over 100 yellow grade mechas. This strike force possessed ferocious strength. The mecha squadron from the Star Dou Empire was strong, but they could not compare with the enemy in both quantity and quality. The best they could do currently was blow a portion of the barrage of soul cannons. Thankfully, the diplomatic members of the Douluo delegation had 7 soul masters, each with at least 7 soul rings, who could contribute to the defensive. Even so, those could not even hold a candle to Wu Zhangkong equipped with his sky ice battle armor. In the sky, he weaved in and out of combat, wielding a gigantic skyfrost sword to intercept numerous attacks heading toward his students. The current situation didn't afford them the leeway to launch a counterattack. All of their manpower was busy defending the civilians still left in the train. The bombardment they faced filled the surrounding area with massive energy fluctuations. A single cannon shell finally penetrated their defensive line and hit a carriage a distance away from Tang Wuling's group. It exploded, debris flying everywhere and flames swallowing it whole. The surrounding carriages shook from the resulting blast wave. By now, Tang Wuling's team had managed to rescue tens of people. Wulin, I don't think we can hold on much longer. You need to come out quickly. Yue shouted to them from the roof of the carriage. Several of the mechas from the Star Dou Empire's squadron had been destroyed. This put their side at a further disadvantage, and they were slowly being pushed further and further back. Although the enemy's hawk-like red grade mecha was weaker than Elder Kai, it possessed tremendous speed that made up for the gap between them. Using that speed, it launched precise attacks that denied Elder Kai the room to divert attention to other fronts of battle. She couldn't afford to bring this battle, one between 2 peak-level experts, anywhere near the ground lest she risked massive collateral damage. Tang Wulin brought out another 2 civilians from the train carriage. With those 2 people rescued, there were 5 carriages left to go through. If they turned tail and fled now, their survival would be guaranteed considering their strength. However, all the people still stuck in the train would die. Tang Wulin glanced at the sky, then shouted, "Everybody, prepare to retreat." As he spoke, he rummaged through his coat pocket and filled with something. Then, despite his own orders for retreat, he rushed back into the train. Soon, enemy mechas rushed toward the defensive line. The enemies had long since completely suppressed the delegation's side with ranged attacks. Now some were enjoying superiority in numbers by engaging in close combat. Before such overwhelming military might, Wu Zhangkong made a grim face and said, "Retreat with the wounded first." Following that, his battle armor shone bright, the rays of light enveloping him like a swirling blizzard. His giant skyfrost sword flared with blue radiance and drew an icy blue specks of light from the surroundings. Chapter 589, Onslaught. The enemies had noticed Wu Zhangkong's exceptional strength long ago. As such, 2 black mechas were dispatched to handle him. Black grade mechas from Douluo were humanoid and about 8 meters tall. The 2 that were currently approaching, however, differed from Douluo standards. One of the mechas was a gigantic bear, the other was an ape that was only 5 meters tall. While the ape mecha was smaller, it was also clearly much more agile. 2 pairs of short wings with exhaust openings spread out from its back, accentuating a design that prioritized control over its movements. The bear mecha, on the other hand, was a 12-meter tall behemoth. A dark purple barrier cloaked its body and it carried a gigantic battle axe over 20 meters long. It was undoubtedly a power type while the ape was an agility type. The bear mecha charged forward, brandishing its battle axe. Hundreds of meters away from Wu Zhangkong, it attacked. Its axe cleaved through the air like a howling hurricane to unleash an ink-black slash. Wu Zhangkong's battle armor shone radiantly in response. Frost scars burst into existence all around him to form a shell, making it look as though he had been enveloped by frosty mist. Then, just before the black slash could strike him, he disappeared in a flash of light. Wu Zhangkong reappeared in front of the bear mecha and swung his sword, weaving together all of the frost scars around him to encase the bear mecha in an icy net. The bulky bear mecha couldn't move its enormous frame fast enough to evade the prison of frost scars, but it didn't need to. Its barrier pulsed with tremendous energy and resisted the attack. Brilliant purple light radiated from the barrier as it clashed with the frost scars, jarring crackles of energy filling the air. The struggle between the 2 energies was fierce, yet the barrier held strong, showing no signs of giving way. That was when the ape mecha appeared behind Wu Zhangkong. With deadly precision, it stabbed a pair of daggers down at his exposed back. In the brief moment that Wu Zhangkong and the bear mecha had clashed, the ape mecha had managed to sneak up on him like a phantom. Its speed was several times faster than that of the bear mecha. It was a formidable mecha that excelled in assassination. The instant the ape mecha appeared behind him, Wu Zhangkong's figure blurred. His skyfrost sword shone brightly, and he became transparent. The ape mecha's daggers piercing nothing but thin air. In the next instant, Wu Zhangkong's skyfrost sword transformed into a giant will as he unleashed his 5th soul skill, Frost Fong Moon. It spun rapidly in place to fill the sky with icy mist, and from that mist, gigantic swords that slashed downward. Faced with 2 opponents of tremendous power, Wu Zhangkong couldn't afford a prolonged battle. He had to adopt a blitzkrieg strategy in which he held nothing back. In the face of the icy onslaught, the bear mecha unleashed a burst of light. Its barrier was already struggling to protect it, working at max capacity. The bear's massive frame allowed it to store enormous amounts of energy, but even with that bulk, it could not completely defend against Frost Song's might. As if realizing this, countless beams of light shot out from cannons hidden on the bear mecha's back. They streaked toward Wu Zhangkong in a deadly burst, but right before they could strike him, Wu Zhangkong's figure disappeared. The beams passed harmlessly through the expanse of icy mist that remained where he once was. Then a metallic screech ripped through the air, and the black mecha suddenly turned white. Wu Zhangkong's disappearance startled the ape mecha. Then it saw the bear mecha slowly begin to plummet. Even a black grade mecha would suffer catastrophic damage if it crash landed from such heights. The fact that the bear mecha had been completely frozen was utterly shocking. It was likely that even the pilot within had been frozen to death. The icy mist suddenly condensed behind the ape mecha, shifting into Wu Zhangkong's form. The mecha instantly twisted into a barrel roll to evade, but the mist was everywhere. Hundreds of frost scars melded into existence to instantly surround the ape mecha, trapping it in a giant net of ice. With a quick slash of his sword, Wu Zhangkong unleashed a resplendent sword beam at the ensnared mecha. This was the power of 2 of his soul skills, Frost Song and Skyfrost Slash. The ape mecha floated in the air for a moment, frozen. Then, as it split in 2 and fell to the ground, Wu Zhangkong once again faded into the mist. In a flash, Wu Zhangkong destroyed 2 black grade mechas. This was the difference in power between mechas and battle armor, the gap between an ordinary soul master and one from Shrek Academy. While Wu Zhangkong had been eliminating the 2 black grade mechas, many of the other enemies reached the defensive line of the train main and engaged the defenders in chaotic close combat. The mecha squadron from the Douluo Empire fought hard to maintain the line, but it was an impossible task. They were drastically outnumbered. Those from the Douluo delegation spared no effort to support the defensive line as well, but casualties piled up with each and every clash. As the battle raged on, Tang Wuling tore an exit out of the carriage he was in and brought out another 2 injured people. Yuan and Yui followed behind him in her titanate form, carrying 4 in her arms. Once they delivered the wounded to the Imperial Douluo Academy students, both prepared to charge back into the train. At that moment, however, a purple-grade mecha descended upon them, brandishing a giant sword at Yuan and Yui. Even in her titanate form, Yuan and Yui could not contend with the strength of a purple-grade mecha, yet she did not back down. Her eyes flashed with ferocity as she swung both fists at the sword. Fists and sword collided in an explosive boom. Yuan and Yui slid back a few meters while the mecha was sent flying backward. The Imperial Douluo Academy students watched from the sidelines. Mount Zagabe, fighting a mecha with bare fists. What a monster. As soon as Yuan and Yui found her footing, she punched out again with their cannon to send 2 blasts of air slamming into the enemy. Unfortunately for her, the enemy was equipped with a barrier. The shield of energy simply shimmered slightly as it mitigated the force of the air blasts. Then the mecha hefted its sword upright, taking a stance as the sword abruptly ignited with flames and became cloaked in blazing purple fire. This was the combined might of mecha and soul master. Yuan and Yui snorted, her 4 soul rings lighting up around her. Her figure shrank, but her muscles swelled with more strength thanks to the effect of Devil Titan. Again, she charged at the mecha, fists swinging. Flaming sword clashed with titan fists in a rumbling explosion. A booming wind swept across the area. Frightening energy fluctuations rampaged around the combatants. And once again, the mecha was sent flying by Yuan and Yui's punches. Even as the mecha flew through the air, Yuan and Yui leapt after it, pressing her attack. Before it could reposition itself to respond, she slammed her fists into it, smashing it to the ground. Below her, she dashed over to the grounded mecha. After a few quick leaps and a somersault, he reached the mecha's cockpit. He made short work of the pilot, then turned back to Yuan and Yui to flash her a smile and a thumbs up. Yuan and Yui rolled her eyes at him. In the next instant, she grew serious once more as she noticed over a dozen mechas flying toward them. It was a strike team, a black mecha leading 4 purple mechas with the rest being yellow grades. The enemy had clearly noticed their resistance here and came to eliminate them. The students from Shrek Academy weren't afraid of purple and yellow grade mechas, but black grade mechas were a whole different story. The pilot of such a mecha was at least a 6-ring soul emperor. A soul master as powerful as that would only become even stronger when equipped with a black grade mecha. I'll handle the black mecha. Tang Wuling shouted as he jumped out of the train. He landed at Yuan and Yui's side atop the train in a burst of gold. You guys take care of the rest. Before anyone could say otherwise, he leapt into the air and shot 2 vines of blue silver emperor at the black grade mecha. Chapter 590, Green Skull Renegades. The pilot of this black grade mecha was Feng Linwen, a famous member of the Green Skull Renegades. At the young age of 27, he was already a soul emperor and one of the Renegade's rising stars destined to become a divine grade mecha pilot. Since the tender age of 3, he had loved mechas and dreamed of becoming Douluo's greatest mecha pilot, always yearning to be near one of these great embodiments of modern technology. His every action was for the sake of this goal. By the time he was 27, he had defeated many of his rivals in the Green Skull Renegades, eventually obtaining his own black grade mecha, and he had rejoiced the moment he received it and loved it dearly. So much so, in fact, that he once slept for 3 whole days in it. If truth be told, that wasn't a rare thing for him to do. A mecha was an extension of the body in Feng Linwen's eyes. For the sake of becoming an ace mecha pilot, he had fervently cultivated since the day he awakened and spared no effort in improving his pilot skills, opting to even ignore any secondary profession. To him, those were only distractions. All he needed in his life were mechas. Although battle armors were powerful, Feng Linwen didn't believe the power of an individual could overcome that of science. As mecha technology progressed, he was certain that mechas would one day surpass battle armor. The operation this time had been planned long in advance. They were to strike the train with overwhelming military force and take out the most powerful people in the Douluo delegation. Under the watchful eye of the powerful Douluo Empire, the Green Skull Renegades could barely continue to survive. For the sake of more breathing room, they needed an external force to intervene and draw away the Empire's attention. The delegation from Douluo was perfect for this purpose. As such, the goal of this operation was to eliminate the entire delegation, causing a rift between the 2 continents' governments. Their surprise attack had been kept under lock and key. Before they commenced, a communications blockade was imposed on every participant. In fact, most of them hadn't been privy to the operation's objective. After the Green Skull Renegades had bombarded the Soul Train with special radar jamming shells, everything seemed to go according to plan. That a tile Douluo would be present had been known in advance, and they had prepared accordingly with a divine grade mecha. However, Feng Linwen hadn't expected that there would be people left over able to defend the train. The next phase of the battle now strayed from their careful planning. In the firefight between both sides, although they had managed to suppress the defenders with overwhelming numbers, the casualties for the Douluo delegation numbered extremely few. The vast majority of the Douluo delegation's members were soul masters of at least some repute. Combined with the Douluo Empire's mecha squadron, they were able to put up a fierce fight against such a great defensive. The Green Skull Renegades couldn't dominate the battlefield. The defenders had managed to send out an energy signal, and as the seconds ticked by, the reinforcements grew closer and closer. Although the Green Skull Renegades knew their long-range bombardment would eventually wear down their targets until annihilation, they were pressed on time and were forced to engage in close combat. Thoroughly and quickly eliminating the Douluo delegation was now more important than ever. Earlier, Feng Linwen had noticed the iron-tight defense mounted by Yue in this section of the train. She was like a one-man artillery line. Even without a mecha or battle armor to amplify her power, she intercepted the incoming attacks by just waving her staff, unleashing wave after wave of elemental attacks. Feng Linwen couldn't let this be and had flown over. As Feng Linwen neared the train carriage, he pulled out a pair of gigantic hammers from the back of his mecha. In consideration of their potential for catastrophic damage and the mecha's tremendous strength, he had opted for hammers over swords. Energy surged into the hammers. They crackled with pitch-black sparks upon his downward swing toward the carriage. Before he could inflict any damage, a teenage boy leapt out of said carriage and saw his direction, instantly filling up his screen sensors. En route, 4 soul rings appeared around him, 3 purple and 1 black. His 4th ring is a 10,000 year. Feng Linwen was taken aback. It was his first time facing such a young genius. Then he saw the black ring shine. A swarm of dark blue vines, each as thick as a human leg, shot toward him. As the vines neared, Feng Linwen noticed a dark gold twinkle within them, for some reason reminding him of a golden dragon. The sheer number of vines engulfed the figure of the boy. What the hell kind of martial soul is that? Feng Linwen's lips parted in disbelief. So what if he has good soul rings? He's still only got 4. I have 6. And a black grade mecha too. How could he possibly be my opponent? The mecha changed targets in midair. It threw the hammer in its right hand straight at the approaching Tang Wuling. Feng Linwen's combat style favored crushing his opponents through brute strength. He himself was a power-type soul master, so he was quite skilled at dominating his opponents in this way. The black hammer zipped toward Tang Wuling like a giant missile. Air parted before it as it broke the sound barrier, exploding in a sonic boom. The vines showed no will to block the hammer, peeling back one after another to make way for it. Yet an instant later, they weaved a giant net in the air. Upon collision, the net recoiled, but it managed to slow the hammer. As the hammer continued to push against the net began to shake, enduring the hammer's power and dispersing its energy. Feng Linwen's eyes went wide. His were no ordinary hammers. They were imbued with the pulverizing property from his martial soul. The moment they hit their target, this usually resulted in a mangled death. When the hammer struck the net of vines, the vines shone gold and revealed what looked like a skeletal structure within. Bathed in gold, the vines managed to absorb all of the hammer's force. Feng Linwen furrowed his brow. He reached out with the mecha's right hand to recall the hammer. Naturally, he wouldn't have thrown the hammer if there wasn't a mechanism to return it to his hand. However, a vine wrapped around the hammer's handle and prevented it from leaving. From the swarm of vines, Tang Wuling appeared, swinging from one of the vines toward his hammer. The hammer the black grade mecha wielded was over 5 meters long, its head about 2 meters in diameter, absolutely huge. Yet Tang Wuling had managed to stop the hammer from moving long enough to grab onto it. As he wielded the giant hammer, the vines unfurled around him into a multitude of tentacles. You're seeking death. Feng Linwen coldly snorted. Trying to use my own hammer against me. We'll see about that. In a flash of black light, a 5-meter-tall silver bear appeared. Its scarlet eyes gleamed with bloodlust. This was Feng Linwen's third spirit soul, the Dusk Silver Bear. Although not as great as the Dusk Gold Dreadclaw Bear, the Dusk Silver Bear possessed exceptional strength. Furthermore, it synergized well with Feng Linwen's mecha, able to wield one of his giant hammers that weighed over 2,500 kilograms by itself. Practically a slaughter machine. The Dusk Silver Bear stepped off the mecha's palm, then burst toward the returning hammer Tang Wu Lin was currently holding. A smirk made its way across Feng Linwen's lips. The power of a 10,000-year spirit soul would tear this boy apart in the blink of an eye, and if the boy retreated, then the Dusk Silver Bear could take control of one of his mecha's hammers and go wild with its attacks. He saw only death in the boy's future. After taking care of the boy, he could continue wiping out the rest of the Douluo delegation. The Dusk Silver Bear reached the returning hammer in no time. It stretched its arms wide to give Tang Wu Lin a crushing embrace, not before a tremendous shadow appeared behind him. However, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.